Everybody gotta put their time in. Billies, wake up, Billies. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WB. Be yourself, see yourself. This is a show my people. Billies, our hopes are to needless reason. Nobody feel left out is the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, respect, unselfishness and cooperation. That's how we need to build a strong nation. We are the people to make the changes. We are the changes. WB. And all the things that we feel happen like I got blue skies. And nothing make people get victimized. Let's work together for better. We got to unite. Billies, yeah. Wake up, Billies. Wake up, Billies. Another day is here. Wake up, Billies. Wake up, Billies. We gotta keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Billies. Wake up, Billies. Everybody gotta put their time in. Wake up, Billies. Wake up, Billies. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WB. Get up, make every day count. Don't waste it, people. Do your part, play your role, get where you need to. You can tune in from work or in your vehicle. If you got a problem, pick up the phone. Why wait? It's a time calling. It's a show with no matter even if you're at home. Just call in. WB. Wake up, Billies. Wake up, Billies. Another day is here. Wake up, Billies. Wake up, Billies. We gotta keep moving. Na 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 na. Wake up, Billies. Wake up, Billies. Everybody gotta put their time in. Wake up, Billies. Wake up, Billies. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WB. Be yourself.
Good morning, Belize. Welcome to the WUB Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes for today, Monday, the 28th of October, 2024. Wherever you are, we hope that your morning is on the dry side. And if it's not, you're able to cope as you lift up this morning. We trust you have great health. Your energy level is high, your vibration is positive, and that you have enough space to be with us. This is Belize's premier morning conversation, WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. I'm Mose, Hyde, and a warm welcome whether you're listening to Creme Radio, watching us on XTV, getting us on our social media streams or via our apps, and of course via simulcast coverage. We have not changed the formula. We still remain committed to getting you up slowly, not rushing the bush, as they say. So we've got your morning news, a little bit of that coming your way. But before we do all that, of course, we've got to find out what the weather looks like, since that is something that we are very keen on, especially when it's a little bit damp. And we don't have the pre-recorded weather forecast with us this morning, so we will. Oh, we have it. See, things kind of work themselves out. We do have that forecast available, and it's forecaster Catherine Cumberbatch.
Good morning, Belize. Moist and unstable conditions continue to prevail. The forecast for Belize and her coastal waters calls for mostly cloudy skies today and tonight. A few showers, periods of rains, and isolated thunderstorms will continue to develop mainly offshore and some coastal areas this morning, then mainly over inland areas this afternoon. Tonight and tomorrow morning, a few showers or isolated thunderstorms will develop mainly along coastal areas. High temperatures for today will range from 84 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast to 85 inland and 74 over the mountains. Tonight, low temperatures will be 75 along coastal areas, 72 over inland, and 65 in the higher elevations. The winds will blow from the north to northeast at 5 to 15 knots, and the sea state will be light to choppy. A high tide will occur at 7:28 a.m., followed by a low at 1:54 in the afternoon. Another high occurs at 7:48 tonight and a low at 2:14 a.m. The sun rose at 5:50 a.m. and will set at 5:22. The moon will set at 3:12 this afternoon and comes up at 3:30 tomorrow morning. The outlook for Tuesday and Tuesday night is for cloud intervals, along with a few coastal morning showers or isolated thunderstorms. Then a gradual decrease is expected. In the sargassum forecast, sargassum impacts are expected to remain minimal for the next 2 weeks. And in the tropical weather outlook for the North Atlantic, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico, tropical cyclone formations are expected over the next 48 hours. And that's your morning forecast. that was prepared here at the National Meteorological Service.
The first private radio since 1989, Creme FM presents the news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports. And now, the news.
All right, making news this morning. Police on Friday arrested and charged the police woman and her husband, believed to be the masterminds behind a spate of about 7 recent robberies in Belmopan. 2 others were also charged, along with the couple. They have been identified as 18-year-old Elijah Cruz, 25-year-old Robert Tillett, 41-year-old police officer Eva Dawson, and 47-year-old Jonathan Cruz. They were charged with robbery and conspiracy to commit robbery. Meanwhile, here in Belize, the police are seeking 2 persons of interest in connection to a robbery that occurred at around 5:30 a.m. last Friday. Reports are that 2 thieves dressed in police attire targeted Uno gas station located on Central American Boulevard. The station's manager, Michael Brown, was preparing to open the establishment when he was approached by the 2 masked men who arrived on a motorcycle. They were dressed in dark blue jackets with police written on the back and camouflage pants. The thieves pretended to need assistance with the air hose. Then one of the assailants pulled out a firearm, pushed Brown inside the station and demanded money while the other guarded the door. The thieves escaped with an undisclosed amount of cash from the office safe, Brown's .38 pistol and the gas station's surveillance footage. The thieves then fled towards Cemetery Road on the motorcycle. The National Emergency Management Organization issued advisories over the weekend due to heavy rain, which led to increasing water levels on some roadways, bridges, and ferries. In Belmopan, all entrances to the J&W area became impassable for small vehicles. In San Ignacio, the low-lying wooden bridge had to be closed. Elsewhere in the Cayo district, the Iguana Creek Bridge was closed, as well as the Baking Pot Ferry and the Zonantunich Ferry. In the Orange Walk district, the San Roman and San Antonio roads were impassable for small vehicles. Despite the weather, which forced the cancellation and postponement of various events across the country, the People's United Party's Northern Caucus met in San Pedro and Burgess Key on Saturday. The 8 northern constituencies and 3 town councils met on the island and assessed the work that has been done in each and devised plans for future development. On his Facebook page, Prime Minister and Party Leader Honorable John Busenya said of the gathering, our preparations for 2025 general elections has commenced. We're ready to renew our mandate to continue building Belize and improving our people's quality of life. Police in the Toledo district are investigating a chopping incident that happened in Forest Home Village. They responded to reports about 11:25 on Thursday night. When they got on the scene, they found 37-year-old Denmark Coleman with chop wounds to the head. According to investigations, Coleman was arguing with another man known to him when things escalated and he was injured. Police investigations continue. Just after 8 Saturday morning, news surfaced of the discovery of a body in the drain in the Arana Crescent area of Langruga Town in the Stanquick district. The deceased has since been identified as Tywin Miguel. Reports are that there were no visible signs of injury. 2 men were shot in Lost Bank, Belize district on Saturday night. They have been identified as Cyril Banner Jr. and Jaden Young, both from Lemonal, Belize district. They were transported to the Carl Hitchner Memorial Hospital for treatment. Reportedly, they were targeted by a single culprit, who the men believe is from Doublehead Cabbage, also in the Belize district. Police are investigating. And that ends our morning news. We now take a small break. When we come back on the other side, of course, we open up for a conversation. This is WUB, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. You're listening to Creme Radio, you're watching XTV.
The first private radio in Belize since 1989. The news. Informative, accurate, current information, local, regional, and international news, weather and sports.
In the heart of a thriving country, Atlantic
All right, good morning and welcome back again. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. This is Wake Up Billy's Morning Vibes. Mose, Hyde hosting today. And we're glad that you have found a little bit of time in your morning schedule to join us and hang out a bit. And we'll be doubly delighted if you are planning to join in by calling. The telephone number to call, of course, is 280-5848. That's the direct line for you to jump in and be a part of the show. Wake Up Billy's Morning Vibes. And it's Monday, and we are, of course, hoping to get the week started on the right foot. Maybe not a dry one, since we got the water to drop, been dropping now for several days, and major pain in the backside for people who are experiencing difficulty with high waters, whether it's coming into your yard or if it's making your commute more difficult. There's a bridge that you can't get over. We know out west that's the situation. We're going to keep you up to date on some of these issues. We did make a report in the news of some of the areas that are right now having that particular difficulty, and rain in the forecast. So the moisture continues. You have to just kind of like, I want to say, grin and bear, because it is October and better rainfall than hurricane. So we just hope that it remains that way, just the rain and not more. We know that you got some of the areas of fishiness out there, but let's not get caught up in all of that. We have moisture to deal with. We're good with moisture. I mean, too much, of course, pain, we understand that. Especially people who live in low-lying areas, live in a low-lying home. It's definitely not all that kind of beautiful rainfall. Is a struggle, we know that. But it is October, that when we get water, it's the wettest month of the year. That's what it's supposed to be. And whenever the weather is what it's supposed to be, nowadays, you have to say, well, we're okay. Because the problem right now, we know on planet Earth, is that the weather, they be your own thing, they do your own thing by your own time, and it causes a lot of problems all around the planet because the weather is so erratic and crazy. Right now, we deal with water. That's when we normally deal with water. But we also have to be careful, mindful that we're still in the tropical season, and that means that we keep one eye out there to see what happens and make sure that nothing too fishy the bunks. But right now, we just do what we have to do. We still have to get up on the saddle. We still have to make the most, as they say. All right. We do have a bunch of stuff lined up, and we are expected to be joined this morning by Marcella Meyer. She's done a significant investigative journalism piece, and we started talking about it last week, but we're going to have her describe the work behind that piece and then go into it a little bit more, and so that's coming up after the first break. In this little segment, while you get yourself all prepped, a couple of things going on. In fact, a couple of things to make you say, what the hell? Our family show, so that's what we have to say. You meet me on the road, you'll be an altered version of that statement, but a couple of things that make you go, what the hell? And one of the first things, obviously, will make you go, what the hell, is Belmopan. We have this very bizarre, disgusting situation where family in-laws basically assaulted, kidnapped, and held a young woman for days. No, the family has, those individuals who were involved have been arrested, including the husband, who seemed to have been involved with the whole thing. But this is like, this is just completely like out of some kind of Netflix production happening out in Belmopan. And can't help but say, what the hell? Like, seriously? The allegations are very serious, even involving, anytime you're talking kidnap, you're talking about serious, and holding somebody for hostage. That's a serious enough allegation going on there. But then you're also, the father-in-law, apparently, in reading up this story, is also accused of sexual assault. So, very disturbing, very out there, and we hope that that matter is dealt with appropriately and those people are held accountable. You know, it's like, it's one thing to have in-laws where stress you out. A number of people might be familiar with that. But to have in-laws where strictly like gone on itself to that point there, that's madhouse. That's complete madhouse. Real what the hell moment. And then to kind of like add to this cycle of bizarre, we find out that a string of robberies is again out there in Bamapan being organized. One of the main culprits, one of the at least the story reads, one of the main brain of the operation is a policewoman. What the hell, literally. So again, we were not aware that you had these robberies going on out west. So it's apparently about 7 robberies or so that were committed. These people apparently have been arrested and they have been charged. Good work, police. But again, very disturbing and very alarming. That's kind of like what we had to digest in the latter part of last week about things that really just, whoa, what they go on there? Straight up. Just like we got new normal, they go on. But for me, I want to go up going up the escalator of what the hell brings me to the government's legislative assault on the Carl Houston Memorial Union. And they went, you know, just randomly out of the blue, like you know, just totally unexpectedly, you know, and just fell on top of the Carl Houston Union. They have a place on the board at the hospital, which makes all the sense in the world, which enables the relationship where the board can have a direct sense of where its workforce stands, what their concerns and what their position is. It makes it completely logical, and unless it is that I can't think of a good reason for the government to go to the extent of legislatively protecting the board from the participation of its workforce at this hospital. Now, it tries to say that it is being done to ensure a wider participation from the labor force, hence making this part available to the Trade Union Congress of Belize, but they cannot be somebody who is from the Carl Houston. So it's a very specific attempt to essentially purge itself of the presence of the representative of the workforce that is day-to-day grinding at the KHMH. There are times when having that kind of participation can be contentious, because naturally sometimes a board wants to do something that the workforce is not aligned with. But that is healthy contention. That means that you are able to get instant feedback before you go about doing something that's going to, you would say, erode the relationship on the people that you have to depend on to do the work. And I'm sorry, you cannot argue that this is achieved by saying, oh, we're going to go to the umbrella body. You cannot make that argument to me. you can make the argument that you're going to the umbrella body as long as you are not specifically saying that the umbrella body is not able to put somebody from that union there. That is a very specific, very that's bad mind, and it's you cannot think of it in any other way. That's a real what the hell moment. Again, we know that with having a member of the union being on the board, it might not be a situation where now you would say convenient to what you would like to do, but it is an important situation to have because it represents an openness and access. It represents accountability and immediate transparency. Now, there are times when this fails. There are times when a rep from the union is not responsible, is not committed, is not reliable. There are times when this rep is, it doesn't work. Because people have different caliber of performance. We get that. But that's not because of the structure. The structure is not what fails. We know that in all aspects that people fail structures. Sometimes structures need to be improved, but more often than not, people fail structures. Like you have a position and then people are in that position, but they don't do an adequate job. Maybe they don't communicate to their rank and file reliably and promptly. Maybe they don't communicate what the rank and file feels when they're on that board meeting. Or sometimes they get caught up in being a part of the board, but that's not a failure of the structure. The fact that you have somebody there that is deeply connected to the work that's being done on a day-to-day basis cannot be looked upon as being something that is somehow problematic. Maybe you have an individual that is not up to the task. Well, you can come out and say this person is not up to the task. But the problem is not the fact that you have the presence and that you have that spot is open to that. On most of the boards, for example, of especially government educational institutions, the board is made up of different representatives. You might have somebody from the private sector, you have somebody from the municipal government, you have somebody from the staff. Now, the equivalent is to say that, you know what, we are not going to have a representative from the staff. Instead, we will only have a relationship with somebody from the umbrella union for educators, which would be the BNTU, and it cannot be somebody from the staff. That would absolutely make no sense. That is not to say there's anything wrong with having the BNTU involvement, and there would be absolutely nothing wrong if this legislation was to add a spot for the NTUCB. That would be a strengthening of the workforce participation in the process at the KHMH, whether for we hospital. So straight out, point blank, we have to just straight out say complete disagreement and find it completely unacceptable and stand in solidarity with the union and the KHMH saying you commit aggravated assault, because that's what's being committed on that union. Like you are trying to say, listen, we don't want enough we business directly. If we don't want to know about we business, we don't have to go wrong and get that from umbrella body, but one can't be in it. So that limits the immediacy of the participation, and it then chops the direct communication line, two-way line, access and participation. And that, to my mind, is an egregious legislation and has to be changed, challenged, and stopped. Absolutely. That does not work for me. That's my opinion on that. And that is like really what the hell, like of all the things that we could be using legislation for, and you know, all the effort that went into that, the time to create legislation to do that, to just prevent the participation of the workforce, the people who did it on the grind every day. That wrong. That absolutely wrong. And the argument given is lame. If you want the TUC's participation, then you bring the TUC additionally. There cannot be enough. You can't have enough participation, because at the end of the day, the workforce at the KHMH and the workforce overall have one important say in our go on at KHMH. Like I said, that the people's hospital. That are really and truly the people's hospital. And it is through the participation of the labor movement, labor force, that you have a widening of that access and the widening of the say and the participation of the general public, and specifically the workforce that get up and do the job, who line up and have to be the front and have to be grinding and doing what is required to make this hospital work. That is, there's no green light, and there should be no green light for that. And finally, as far as what the hell, last week again, it makes headlines that on Wednesday, our good friend to the north, our ally, the great United States of America, had a ceremony with its U.S. Southern Command in Guatemala to make donations of military equipment. I don't see the inventor. I can tell you all what they get, and look at and get different parts, whatever, strengthening. And the argument is that it's to be used to help fight trafficking. And one of the generals of the Guatemalan military was on hand to receive these very kind gifts. Of course, this is not some kind of breaking news that the Americans are supporting the Guatemala military. Like, if it's the first you've heard of such a thing, then you've been living in a very naive reality for a long time. Welcome to the world as it is. This is many people are very aware and conscious that there's a very close relationship between the U.S. and Guatemala. So that's not what makes it go, what the hell. In our life, everything that timing make things either headlines or make it inconsequential. To have a situation where we have been lamenting, and just weeks ago you had the Guatemalan military aggressively dealing with people who were exercising their patriotic right to go into the Sarstoon River, which is part of our territory as established in 1859. The vessel that they were in was aggressively approached with armed individuals of said armed forces of Guatemala and they were rammed. You have some grown people, even at the highest level of the diplomatic representation of the country, who are not in agreement with the word ram being used. But in a free world, we know how ram look, and that I'm a ram. Either way, that's another story. The story is that in the shadow of that event and the subsequent conversations, sometimes arguments that we've had, the Americans felt comfortable to have this very cozy, rosy, loving, romantic moment with its great ally in Guatemala and giving them military supplies. Right front of you. We no care. We know the Hyde. We the get anything. We the get the thing directly to the military. Again, that's a sovereign nation with another sovereign nation, and then do what they want. They are the big people around here. United States of America. And they are the mightiest military upon earth. And then get anything who they want to get anything to. And it's not to say that they don't give anything to. They give anything for Coast Guard, and then give away. I don't know how much military thing they give away. I don't know about the military donations. I know that they give things to the Coast Guard. And again, to fight drugs. The problem is that it's quite an insult to do it right then and there, right after we have this experience in the Saskatoon. We repeatedly have these experiences in the Saskatoon, and we've been complaining. Well, let us rephrase that. When I say we, I have to change that. Because the problem with it is that, as we say, nobody in our officialdom can have anything to say about the fact that the Americans, they make their donations. Because we never feel that when they go on that the Saskatoon may even need to get mentioned that United Nations. So the Americans want just look Paris right away and say, but what do they talk about? Uno said that no problem. At the highest level of our foreign affairs apparatus, Uno said publicly and to the whole country and to the world that no problem. Things they work out that the ICG. So we comfortable and we good to go for getting Balia some things. The fact that they are using the same thing here, down the Saskatoon, for pint at uno, for ram uno, well, uno okay with that. Because uno not really make a big fuss about it. No, the usual grumbling people on the ground, they make nice, but they are no official nice, and that nice they're not concerned about. We don't hear that, we don't know that. See no evil, hear no evil. Be no evil, that's how they live it. That's why we spend so much time when we squander the opportunity to officially put out for we position. Not that that stop, or that could possibly stop. Nothing stop them people here from do what they want to do. Kids the dead every day at Gaza. And then Bali they send the bullet and a missile and a bomb and a this and a that every day, $1 billion worth. And that not stop. That not stop them. Problem is that we don't have a record for stand on for say to the world, listen, a problem exists here, so that when people act that way, you can then speak on it. You could say, well, you see this is how it work. We experience this problem down here, and we don't want to do that right to a face. Bare face, you do it. No, they hide it. Picture, take all of that. Instagram. We didn't make this relationship official, my friend. We the handle them. And we handle them too. But do understand, they're not for we boy. To your face. But you can't complain because, well, you don't tell them people you not got a problem with it. Well, you don't tell them people here that the boat never really rammed them. You don't tell the people and tell the world over and over that really and truly what they go on is that for we people they provoke them. So now you can't turn back now and say you got a problem with the fact that the mightiest of the mightiest, they give them one of your hands out for the military, where it might not be what is directly used, and Wilmer here has often made this point. The vessels that they are being rammed with, the vessels that are approaching them, the guns that are being used when they come and they have them crack and gun up in the air, these are things which are supported and donated. That's the nature of that relationship. And yet, today or tomorrow, if the territorial volunteers ever feel like they want to go to SARS, don't trust me, they want to get the same treatment, because the same treatment is consistent. The Guatemalan Armed Forces do not tolerate any Belizean entrance into the SARS without them making it known that they don't belong there, without doing the proper immigration, because they are entering Guatemalan territory. And so that part of the conundrum where we put with Selvina and where we involve Vina to try stand up and essentially protect our right to this home. But we have one call. Krem, good morning, WB. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
I think
We have a lot of feedback going on your. We have, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you have to lower your.
Okay. Okay, I better now.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
You know, from the beginning, I will tell Belizeans we not going to no ICJ. Because if we go to ICJ, we decline our own nonsense with Guatemala and the government where they care with it. We should have never gone to no ICJ. I mentioned this thing when Krem had a thing out of park. I said the Queen never did give you no disputed land. So we were going to finish, we were going to see if we owe Guatemala anything. That I mean a conversation from the whole NIP to the UDP. They can't give Guatemala.
Again, but I hear you, but yes, at the end of the day, where we had the referendum and people gone and vote on it, that's what took place. And the people voted to go. And so that we gone there. That's the way they're on the record. We, the people of Belize, gone on the ICJ. So the WB Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. The telephone number is 280-5848. And we have one call. Krem, good morning, WB.
Morning.
Good morning.
Underemployed. But Mose, we were managed into going there. Managed. And because we have not understood that to dismantle colonialism requires that you develop an extraordinary sophistication. You can't operate in the primitive dimension once you're going to take on the decolonization process. And we, and not only us, the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, we are still operating in the primitive dimension. And so the people don't understand that the leaders who function like rulers are inept, dishonest, venal, and we too are those things. And until we make up our minds that we will not walk the route of the leadership, and we have to become more exactly as the common people became in Europe in taking on leadership to get a place around the table and get a better life. And that is what we have. But, even though I am angry with the people, I understand that they were managed into giving a yes. They were managed into it, and our leadership managed them on behalf of the external powers. It is absolutely frightening, man. And there is no... So here we are now. They can't do a damn thing. You know, Mose, what day are we going to have but we can't have it because what we think we have is a representation of the common people there in that House of Representatives. That's not what we have. We have aspiring aristocrats in that house. All of them are aspiring aristocrats. So they don't stand on the side of the ordinary common people. They don't. Or the third estate, they don't. And we have not grasped that. And because we have not grasped that, it's taken advantage of. Honestly. It is just, look, when are our people going to stop and take a good look at Palestine to understand what is happening there is our lot down the road? And it's not, you have to know European history to understand why we are where we are. Why we are where we are. All of us in the New World are what I call the reject peoples of the Eastern Hemisphere and now a part of the Western Hemisphere. That's what we are. And, but we are human beings, and human beings copy. We are a copying species. We mimic. And so, when they cross the Atlantic, look at it, Mose. The very origins of the American Revolution of Independence, the Independence War, was because the British wanted to tax for war. And like in England, as had happened in England, the American colonists said, wait a minute, man, we don't want to be no part of the war. So they proceeded to boycott, and the tax was going to be on tea. So they boycotted it. And of course, they went to Revolutionary War because they were told, but the Bill of Rights not apply to you all there, you know, only to people living in the British Isles. Doesn't apply to you all. And so they said, oh, really? Well, then we want our own Bill of Rights. And the only way we can get that is through rebellion and revolution. You see? And that very country that started out opposing war has emerged to be the most warmongering entity. I won't say in human history because all of human history, every continent has written its history in war. But because humans improve in each endeavor, we improve on the good and we improve on the bad. We improve on the two of them. So here we are now, a planet that was just ravaged with a serious illness that promises to return because everything is being done to weaken the human immune system and make it vulnerable to illness. Everything is being done. But the issue of America lies in Europe. You've got to understand Europe to understand them. And they are taking us down, and we are all because our crowd, let's say here in the Caribbean, well, we're not so sure we know not English, but we are so mixed up that we are not even taking the time.
Do you think, Ms. Corey, that it's just coincidence, or do you think there is some premeditation to the timing of that?
Well, I didn't know about it until I thought the tail end just now. I agree with you. It's not coincidence. It's timing. It's not coincidence at all. At all. You see, Mose, remember I got on this very radio station and I brought this up on Love, I think, one night with that crowd, with the discussion. What I found very peculiar, what I find very alarming is this. First of all, when Palestine was voted on in 1947, the partition of Palestine, the first country to give the vote was Guatemala. Now, the Pope agreed to bring in the Latin American vote. And there were historical reasons why that Pope, the Pope of that day, took up that task. Because Christianity had been the horror of the Jews. They created the Jewish horror. During the Black Plague Mose, when they couldn't figure out why people were getting sick, they turned eventually and blamed it on the Jews. And you know that the Jews self-immolated on a number of occasions across Europe. As they came to burn them down, they decided, well, if you're going to burn me up, I'll burn myself up first. That happened all over Europe. So, because of that, they have a burden of sin that they decided they would wash away, and then now comes the Second World War, and they're faced with a highly traumatized population. The Jews logically were a traumatized people, extremely traumatized. And they didn't want their traumatized people in their land. They didn't want them. So they then decided, we're going to find a place, let's put them here and shove that set out. That's what they did. And now that is Guatemala, they went to the Pope, and so the Pope brought in the Latin American vote. Not all of Latin America. Honduras never voted, it abstained. That's one example. Cuba didn't vote. So some voted no and some abstained. All of Latin America did not vote, but Guatemala led the vote. And because the Jewish sense of gratitude, well, what would become the Israeli sense of gratitude remains to this day, Guatemala is a favored ally of yours. Wasn't it Guatemala that was at the front of the line to move its embassy to Jerusalem, Mose?
Yep.
When Mr.
Yes.
Yes. And you can type a search. I was unaware that Netanyahu had visited Guatemala. Were you aware of that?
No.
I was unaware and gave them wheelchairs. I don't know what else he gave them, but he gave a render.
All right, we kind of lost you there, Ms. Corey, and I have to go to break. It's right now 7:28. Oh, I had off my mic. Hello?
Hello, Mose. I'm just quickly.
We had to be on?
Pardon?
I was just going to break, Miss Corey.
Okay then, good.
All right. We go to break and come back. welcome back, WB Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. We're changing a little bit now as advertised for almost a week. And as promo this morning, we are joined by one of our very own, Zinc Fence's news editor. She actually is involved with all three entities, so you would call her a universal operative.
Universal Permandala operative.
Full zinc.
Yes.
Full zinc. Television, radio, newspaper. But in her work, you shared with me, and I call you name, Marisol Amaya, ladies and gentlemen, joins us, which is a rare occasion. It's like the wheel shark is at Gladden Split this time around.
Wow.
Yeah, so
I don't understand that reference.
it's an exotic occasion when a wheel shark shows up at Gladden Split. So, and because we are talking about fishes, I thought it was clever. Anyway.
Indeed.
We are going to talk about a story that you've done. It's more than a story. It represents a rare moment for Belize media, Belize journalism, where you have, and it's not that it's the first time, it's just it's a significant investigative piece that's been put in the Mandela newspaper. And I hope that more people have read it by now than had read it last week when I spoke about it. The Belize Fisheries Waters New Frontier on the Threat. And so the way I want to structure the conversation, Marisol, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We don't get you here every time. We know that there's a struggle to get her. We had to beg, we had to do all kind of things.
You've had to beg hard.
I had to beg, and I had to, in a way, had to get kind of like, tell her, well,
he threw all kind of thing on my face. I cannot believe it. That coercion.
Yes, yes, unapologetic about it. So I wanted to talk about the story of the story, and then we get into the story, and then finally deal with some of the feedback or / backlash.
Well, actually, I want to start there because...
What? You see what you're going to use people on the show now. They want to tell you how you want to do your conversation. Take notes.
Genesis.
Take notes, Mose, for the next time you're interviewed.
So good morning again, Mose, and good morning, Belize. Belizeans, both at home and abroad. And I say I want to start with the genesis of the story because I want to address certain things to make things clear in people's minds about where or how this all happened. I am not going to get into the negativity because there's been some of that, I think, as expected because of what this story deals with, right? So I'm going to lay out the who, the why, the what, all of that, and that should address those issues. So these stories are... Sorry?
You don't stop the attacks.
No, it won't. But you see what ends up happening is that some people run with misinformation.
Absolutely.
Right? And as a matter of fact, that is how come I became aware that certain things were spiraling in relation to this story. It's like, that's very interesting.
So the government station...
Oh, you're going to go there.
I don't get into it, but the government station...
Yes, they're disparaging the story, the work, the journalists, and those who have provided some funding.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So you have the floor.
So we speak of Earth Journalism Network, and I would encourage everyone to go on their website and look at the body of work that they have contributed to, because they have tapped into journalists around the world to produce stories related to the earth, conservation of the earth, and our resources. And so in the case of Belize, I started working with them last year, and it's not like you're on contract or any such thing. You actually apply for grants. Applying for grants is nothing new. The government does it all the time. So if you want to be levying those criticisms at us, then just look at yourself. That's all I'm going to say in relation to that. But the funding that they provide very minimal, and they admit and say out front that it's supposed to be in-kind contributions from your media organization, right? In my case, I don't have one woman show, everybody, what do you call me, one woman army too, right? So I do a whole lot of media work, like the different aspects of it. And so I've involved some of the camera persons in conducting a lot of the interviews that we've done, but the funding, and you have to submit a budget, right? So you have to detail what that budget is for. Cameraman, and we get to go on trips, and that's the good thing about it, because you know our limitations regarding media in Belize. So in our case, it's like one trip per story. If you can afford more and you can in essence tell them and convince them that okay, it's worth these 2 trips, and that falls within the amount of funding, because there is a limit. And that limit is $1,400 US in one case, and I think the next one totals about 3,600 US. So just to give you an example, my trip was all the way to Barranco. So I had to hire a vessel, a captain and everything to accompany us on that trip, a camera person, for 2 days. And we went, this happened in June, so the grant funding, you apply for that, I think it was February, April. We've been working from then till now, Mose, and this is the very last part of it. So it's been really, really intense, because they at EJN would love, and they've said this, like, we really would have wanted that this is the work you're doing on a daily basis, but we here have to be doing it apart from our work, right? So that's just to give you an example and to be entirely transparent about it. That's 1,400 US.
So again, I think your point is made.
Yes.
In the actual story itself, I think either at the bottom or is at the top.
I put my one at the very top. And that's how I did it for last year when I did this story, which ended up being like a documentary on lionfish.
Yeah, so it says in immediate, when you go to the article, this story was produced with support from the Earth Journalism Network. And that is what making yourself available to accountability and being transparent is all about. And now you, as the reader of the story, can go and find out about this organization. And now what Marisol has shared is exactly what has been given to her. And you know, interestingly enough, last week when I spoke on this, Marisol, the point I made is that everybody has lamented and everybody is aware. This is kind of like the exclusive economic zone for journalism in Belize. It's kind of like that deep blue sea that we cannot tap into. Because of just the limitation on resources.
Yes.
And so
a huge limitation.
And so just to kind of like, this is one single story, and there's so many different stories that require the same treatment, but the fiscal reality and the fiscal kind of boundaries are not things easily broken. So creating partnerships is one of the ways to get around there. And you have to understand that having a transparent part to understand how an article emerges is what is required, and that has been done. Now, I'm glad that you mentioned some components of what was required insofar as hours, manpower.
Listen, that money that's provided does not even begin to cover what has gone into
so you have to
this.
you have to put in your own, because I never get a bill. So I gladly
in hours of work, like it was really
I want to thank you.
it was really intense. No, that's not maybe where you should go to is the map, the second map.
No, this
or
story.
The first map. But before those, there's still one very last thing I want to say that I think is very important, because they're questioning the motive behind these stories, not just mine. There are going to be several others that are going to be published. Our deadline is October. I actually have another one, and the government is not going to be happy about that either. It's in relation to the Gillnet ban, and an update on that. That's very interesting, what has happened with the Gillnet ban. But EJN, Internews, funded by Summit Foundation, and they looked at who all is on the Summit Foundation, and they were like, oh, there are 7 to 8 family members on one board of trustees, but internationally we know that those things happen. There are families and there are people who take interest in conservation and they contribute toward that. So, but this is the important thing. There's complete editorial independence in terms of my editor isn't telling me, well, it has to be so. So you go out, you do, because what happens is they're not us, they're contributing to our work that we do on a daily basis. And so when we go out and do our investigation based on the topic that we submit, they're simply going to say, well, this is how you can improve it. You need a clarification here. You need to move this part up because it warrants much other parts. That is the kind of editorial contribution that they give, but it also comes with a whole lot of technical experience in this field, right? These are international experts who we're working with, and trust me, this is not the first time that I've done a story of this caliber. You would remember the story that went in NACLA, and that one was about the stevedores, and it was an extensive piece as well. A whole lot of work went into it, right? So just because this one is hitting hard, then they're crying out. That's how I would put that. So,
well, I think you are right to say it is healthy and should be the norm that we look at sources of sponsorship and grants. The thing with that is that we cannot be selective. So you cannot cry about the fact that you have this report being put out and then have a problem with the fact that, oh yeah, you see this organization and that organization, because some of these groups that are operating in our space, hardly ever do we mention the kind of individuals that are behind them and where
they
the
were
money
able to find all the names on the website. That's public information. But
now you have some big organizations here where they operate now in space where very dominant, and their money is coming from sponsors of the Republican Party and Donald Trump. They need to go and find out about that. And when I say the biggest are the biggest, they're straight aligned with right policies all around the world. All right.
So Mose.
So coming back to you, Marshall. I don't want to go down that.
So much. No, we're not going to go down that. But I would really hope, because more stories are coming, right? It was a whole set of journalists and they called out every single one. Anyways, so I hope that you get Marco Lopez once he's published his story, because I think what he's been able to uncover, I think the story had gone under the radar, as Ms. Sandra Koyi often says, like, we're just rolling on and on and on, snowballing onto something else. Actually, that's not the correct term, but moving on quickly to something else. But his story, I think, is hard-hitting, and it has to do with our fisheries stock. The government pushed back on, the fisheries department pushed back on what was uncovered earlier this year by a project funded by the Summit Foundation, which is the Belize Fisheries Project, and they conducted an assessment of our fishery. And the status of it, and because the government did not like the results of that assessment, this backlash is happening, right? So Marcos specifically touches on the on the status of our fishery,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to be very important.
I'm aware of the fact that they find themselves in a unique position of questioning the world's leading expert on taking an evaluation of fishing stock that is the size of Belize's fishing stock. That it's not your standard evaluation process to look at Belize fishing stock and not to have all the previous baselines. So the expert that was utilized is by Summit is an expert that is considered to be a global leader in this kind of work.
We're not going to get into that because that's not my story, but I'm just saying that what Marco has uncovered is huge. So look out for that.
All right. And they will have problems with people have problem with that. This article, and the reason why you're here, for those who did not hear me last week, looks at the what is called Belize's fisheries waters, new frontiers under threat. And essentially, just to quickly unpack that, is that we got water where we know the fish in yet, where we not sure what they in there, but we not gone there yet, and we not have enforcement there, but we just start out by looking for see who we could sell that off to, for go there and they head away, and for we people can't go there and we don't have the, in fact, it's quite possible and even likely that people don't they do it and they do, because that has been something that has been talked about before, that you got vessels that go in and in water. We know that you have roaming fleets of vessels coming out of Asia that's just looking for fish. And so this work that has been done is to look at the possibility that the government of Belize has been engaged with giving access to those waters in the exclusive economic zone to our number one sugar daddy / sugar mama,
diplomatic sugar daddy,
Taiwan. The reason why you chose this, or was this something that was suggested to you?
So, I want to make something very clear, because you know that I don't like sensationalism.
Right.
You know this. So, I want to make it clear that what you said, one of the points you just made in relation to the government looking at selling off potentially, that after me conducting this investigative report is still a rumor, because as I clearly pointed out in there was no smoking gun. However, the same way that you have that suspicion, there are people within conservation in Belize who have that suspicion. There are fishers as well, because they've been hearing this rumor, not just for 5 years, as I mentioned in that, I think I said for at least the last 5 years in the report, but they've been hearing this for a bit. There's one other thing though. There's one conservation organization who told me there was a PowerPoint where this thing was said, where it was put while an official of the government was making a presentation, but they were unable to locate that PowerPoint. And so now that the story is out there, for those who may have further information that I wasn't able to get to, and of course you heard Ms. Koi, she said that there was some media event down south in Punta Gorda. I have never heard of that before, and I think that this is so significant, that allegation is so significant, that if it had been said, like, I would expect Will Mejia Mefidi scream hell and high water whenever that happened, and I don't expect he would not have known, right? Because word gets around. So I want to start off by that. But how did I become aware, and how did I decide that I'm going to pursue this story? EJN, as part of their collaboration with the reporters, they come down, they conduct some trainings and so, and they bring some experts. In this case, one of those experts said in one of their training that, now they've been working in Belize, so they've been talking to the fishers and different organizations and so on. So when they say casually in the presentation, well, the government approve or they look like they approve Taiwan, the word they use was that they don't get the license to approve Taiwan for fish in our EEZ, and I like, what? Like that completely raised alarm bells for me. And so then I asked conservation people here who were actually at this, at the workshop. And I'm like, have you heard this? And they're like, yeah, oh yeah. And they started giving me different things that they had heard, instances, events, and so. And I'm like, okay, but all of that is still speculative, right? And that is the genesis of this report. Like that just, it was so out of the normal for me that it was something that I decided I wanted to tackle. No.
You do understand that to prevent crime, we need to act on suspicion.
Well, yes, yes. That's what this is about, in essence.
Yeah. Again, I kind of crafted my own synopsis of the article, but what is yours?
So I want to say that I am super proud of my work for one very reason. You know that I don't do that, right?
Incapable of arrogance. Okay. Go ahead.
Until today.
Yeah.
So the reason for that is because when I dived into this, there was so much I did not know. And then I learned that this aspect about internal waters, territorial sea, and EEZ, it's like a foreign concept for a whole lot of people. And you would be amazed that even people in conservation cannot explain what I've explained in there to you. But it took me months.
But the map, at least because I spoke about this last week.
Yes,
that this is the first time I've seen.
That's a beautiful map.
It's the first time I've seen the map.
Yes. Well,
I've seen the map with. I have a consciousness of our exclusive economic zone. The area that has been smothered is the concept that within our barrier reef, that is regarded as an internal sea. That concept, which then means that our territorial space, or when they ask us what is the square area of your nation,
okay,
that it should not be 8,866 square miles. It absolutely is not. We have been told a lie. We have been fed an inaccuracy.
I don't know if we've been told a lie. So one is land, and then the rest is marine space.
No.
And all of it is ours.
No. You have, when you conquer,
Yes.
you have to conquer. It's like when they do the. So for example, they won't exclude Cocotree Lagoon as a part of because it's water.
Okay, I understand.
So that internal water has to be a part of what is regarded as our territory.
Okay. I cannot
So
provide
the
any clarity for you on that.
only person who has been saying that consistently is Miss Coe. And
I'm not sure if other countries do that. I don't know. So we'd have to get someone who could clarify that.
You see what happens is that's unique.
But I completely get what you're saying.
It's unique because of the fact that we have these coral islands. And so we have this internal water built in by those islands and the reef. So it's not many countries have that.
Right.
So that is why we can and have the legitimate claim to have that be an internal water. Apparently that is just how it's done with maritime laws. And so then we go off that, and then we have territorial seas,
that
and then
12 miles outside of the land, fringing reefs and the atolls and whatnot. Yeah.
And then now outside of that is where we have the exclusive economic zone.
Yes.
That's why the map not there?
Which extends 200 miles
That's a beautiful map.
It's so I need to credit.
So how you get
That was prepared by Jamane Balderramos.
Okay.
He is a marine spatial specialist,
Okay.
right? He's attached to TNC.
Okay.
And
So he's the one that designed this map.
he created this map.
Under your
He
instructions?
created well, I'd have to clarify that, but I know that I reached out to him and that was like a meeting by happenstance. It was Roberto Pat who we had asked for an interview with, and when he showed up for the interview, Jamani was there. Both of them, I believe, are employed by TNC, and if I get that wrong, he could. But so being a marine spatial specialist, this map is so
did you
instrumental. So I asked him, like, okay, can you give me an interview on our different areas of our marine space? And this incredible map.
So he's the one that put internals. So I'm saying to you that very few people, in my experience, have ever described that body of water. Maybe they are aware of it. Maybe we do have experts in the field who are aware of it.
I've seen it in other reports, but it's not as clear. There are a whole lot of other things. You know, maps are used for so many different things, but this one, marine spaces.
So that, the one blue that jolts out there like a triangle going out there, that last layer of blue that you see there, third layer of blue, is the area in question with the article that Marisol has written. And so just before we go to break, I wanted to just set the table to look at some of the highlights of this article, because the article speaks about that. And it speaks about the potential that exists. And I wanted you, because I have taken the liberty to describe my interpretation of what the synopsis of the article is. I wanted you to do that before I go to break, Marisol.
So I did not get to finish my point about why I'm proud of this.
Yeah.
Because it's an educational piece. Like a lot of people, it took me months and months and months and so many interviews because I was doing one thing and I was still not clear. And so I had to, like, I kept being pointed on and on and on to different people. And so this just makes it so very clear for so many people who do not know about our marine space and what's what. This accomplishes that. And actually, I've had one person say that this should be reading that's required at university, at schools and whatnot. And I completely agree, because it wasn't just about that rumor of Taiwan. I uncovered so many other things in conducting my investigation. But to get to your point, what it's about is that the government has decided that it's time to begin exploring our deep sea. If you could go back to the first map with all the different areas, up to area. So if you see that, you have the 3 atolls clearly there?
Yeah.
All right. The area that's surrounding those atolls, area 9, that is our deep sea area of our territorial sea, right? Fishers are already accessing those areas. But the government, I think it was 800 out of 3,400 fishers say they deep sea fish, or they access area 9. Right? That's very significant, but the government now is saying that we want to get more fishers looking at deep sea, and the reason for that is because fishers are saying it's getting harder for us to find fish. We need to go further. There's climate change because of the heat. Fish are going further in, all of that, right? So that is the reason why they're moving to conduct a stock assessment in Area 9, in our territorial seas, including all of that. There's a talk about conducting a stock assessment in our EEZ, the area further out of that, the next map. But they've tapped into the Taiwanese to do that, and that is what has I think, driven a whole lot of the suspicion and the rumors surrounding
Anxiety.
this. Yes.
Let's give a
You
term that maybe the government officials might be soothed by.
Oh
A
yeah,
little bit
yeah. That's what it is.
anxiety.
I'm being more mellow, right? But that's what it is, definitely.
All right, we're going to go to break. Come back. We have Marisol for the next segment. She's not leaving. You know, we don't make it no. You know, they left here till 8:30.
I'm sure we're gonna go long.
Here, this morning we've been joined by our news editor, Marisol Amaya, discussing her recent article that has been published in the Mandela newspaper. We have a call. Krem, good morning, WB.
Good morning, Mose and Marisol.
Good morning.
Congrats to Marisol for a really well-written, it's informative and educational article. I would even call it groundbreaking. Groundbreaking in the sense that it's of interest, it should be of interest to technical people, conservation community, the scientific community, academia, but also the general public. I think it was pitched at a level where anybody could understand it, but it's deep in information. And so I would want to say that people in schools should read this, and this is all the way from primary school through high school, and obviously at the tertiary level. Very, very good work. I want to say that what stood out to me with her article is that it was comprehensive. Not only comprehensive, but factual. I think that what we want to look at is the fact that among other things, Marisol has talked about some kind of pushback. I don't know what that pushback is, and credit to her, she did not go to what that exactly was. Credit to her, because there are times when you don't want to, you don't want to respond. Some things are not worth responding to. I want to say that I volunteer with the Belize Federation of Fishers, and if Marisol is getting pushed back, that is not strange. It is not strange because when you come up with information, and you know, Mose, my work has been in this for 27 years, and when you come up with info that is not necessarily in concert with what officialdom may deem to be palatable, there is pushback. And I would not be surprised if they attempted to discredit the messenger, but that does not help. My mentor, Neil deGrasse Tyson, has said that when it comes to good science, it's the truth whether you believe it or not. And I believe that what Marisol has done has been the truth as we know it. The experience that I've had with fisheries over the last 2 years that I've been volunteering BFF is that I am very much concerned about the state of the fishery. I have spent 27 years on the science and management side of fisheries. My volunteer work now is on the social side. It's about livelihood. And so we have been working with the Summit Foundation, and the Summit Foundation has been in Belize for the better part of a decade, looking at stock assessment. And what they have found is in concert with what we all know. The fish stocks in Belize are in trouble. And this is the high value conchs, lobster, and the larger aggregating fin fishes, your snappers and your groupers. Fisheries has a different narrative now. And that narrative is when you look at conchs and lobster, they are saying that they are stable fisheries. And the data is saying, and this is fisheries data also, fisheries data is saying, as compiled and analyzed by the Summit scientists, is basically saying you want to look very, very carefully at conch, because if we don't, that industry, the conch fishery, can collapse or go through some serious, serious decline, irreversible decline in a year or two. Lobster is even more precarious. We have been saying to Fisheries Department, if you have alternative facts, quote unquote, let us see those facts. When you ask the Fisheries Department for those facts, you know what they do? They will send you a department report that says all is well in paradise. And we are saying, well, that's your story. Unless we see the underpinning technical workings, then we could not be convinced. As a scientist, I have been saying to Fisheries Department, One of the value of science is that there's always this eternal question. You don't go to sleep with science. Things changes. And so I have been an advocate for saying, Fishers, let us get together. Let us get together with the Summit Foundation. Let us get together with Dr. Pauly and his team, and let us examine your information versus our information.
I think, Brother Mavitt, I think what I think I'm now, you know, like we need Marisol has shared with us a trailer for an upcoming article being done by Marco Lopez, who was once the editor of the Amandala, but you know, worked with us here on News Team, and so I'm really excited about that. Looking forward to that article. I think that's going to deal a bit more deeper with the fish stock conversation, which is critical. So again, you know, you make the point about this, the importance of this work, and we have to express gratitude to the people who supported the work. And it's not, again, I say this as a confession. This is where the true value of journalism resides, where we're able to do this kind of a deep excavation, and then let the chips fall where they may. Right? That's the way it works. So again, I'm glad that you read the article, and I know that you have been involved with the work. Before you go, one of the things that is described in this article, and I wanted to bring up Marisol, and so Marisol could join in, is the whole question of how we make the leap for our fishers to be able to leap forward with the capacity, because that's always been the argument of why we are not able to go and look at the possibilities that exist in the exclusive economic zone, the resources that are required. It's kind of like we don't want to take on. It's like what I think it is one of the presidents of the United States of America that said when he described why they are going to the moon. It's because it's difficult, right? It's because this is challenging that we should be extremely motivated. How are we going to do it? Because we know there are Monka lives that are impacted. This article, this information impacts, as you just described, several thousand families immediately. Like not indirectly. We're talking about every day. This is how they survive. That's the value of this article. But for our overall comprehensive understanding of the value, as the anthem calls it, wealth untold, we have to do this heavy lifting mentally. Your thoughts, Marisol, your thoughts based on the interviews you've done, is it even something, is there any belief in the fisher folk that they're able to make this leap?
Well, I want to say something now that George Mavet has called in, because I did intend to say that he does not believe that there's bounty in our EEZ. But the important thing about all of this is that the government is moving to explore, right? I think that exploration in itself is costly. The IDB loan just for our territorial sea stock assessment is US 7 million, and a portion of that, a very small portion, I think it's 1.3 million US, would go to grants to fishers to improve their livelihood and so. But the thing about it is that, okay, the government needs to establish first what's there, and if they find that in fact it can be explored, then comes who gets to explore it. And our fisher folk are jaded, because there have been so many different projects and programs before, both with the government and NGOs, where they feel that there's been lack of accountability in terms of how those funds are used. But the other part of it is that it has always been so insufficient. And when you're talking about getting those huge vessels, I mean, the Coast Guard is saying they're going to get a up to 33-meter vessel for US 10 million. I mean, so like if we to get our fishers out there, how much is it going to cost? But there are those in conservation, and the BFF has been one to say we cannot afford in Belize any kind of industrialized fishing, right? We want to support our fisher folk to be able to conduct deep sea fishing, which is already happening, but they need to be supported, because I shared with you the number of fishers who are registered, 800 out of 3,400 who say that they are deep sea fishing. They're using these Mexican skiffs, 23 to 25 footers.
George?
Yeah. Most in terms of the potentials of the deep sea, it would be good if you put on the map there, but even without that, I would say Oceanography 101, the tropical seas are not as productive as temperate and frigid water seas, and that's for a reason. You have whales and seals and masses of seabirds near to the poles because of a reason, and that reason is that the sea is constantly churning. The far north and the far south are stormy seas, and what happens, it's like a pressure cooker. The seas are turning over constantly, and so your nutrients from the bottom is kind of being recycled throughout the water column.
Isn't there a current? Isn't there a current though where I forgot the name of the current, but I've been told that there is a current that runs, I believe, going north, that should provide a level of nutrition for fish stocks to exist. I mean, I don't know if you've.
They are most. All right. So there's that general picture. The reason why tropical seas, and I use this kind of tongue-in-cheek in the sense, where does tropical seas end? Well, Belize and the Caribbean generally, especially the island Caribbean, these are tropical seas. And what happens is that you have in the water column a kind of discontinuity layer that we call a thermocline. Once material falls below that thermocline, it's not recycled. Where you have your productivity, to some extent most, is in your shallow water ecosystems, which are your coral reefs, your mangroves, and your seagrass beds. One of my professors from UWI back in the day basically referred to the Caribbean as a productive desert. It sounds like a conflict of terms, but it is not. If you look at the masses of the Caribbean Sea, I forgot what the arithmetic of it is, but 90% of the Caribbean Sea is not very productive. Where you will find the productivity is near to shore and in the shallow seas where you have your coral reef systems especially. The reason why Belize is such a scuba diving heaven is because you will have visibility of 150, 200 feet once you're scuba diving or you're snorkeling Mose, and that is so because the water is generally nutrient poor. As you journey, for example, from Belize City out, by the time you reach Stake Bank, you have good visibility. Near to shore, there's the nutrients coming off the land, just generally speaking. So I want to say that it's not that the tropical seas are not invested with fish biomass, they are. But we have to qualify that by saying that relative to temperate and frigid seas, those are much more productive.
Yeah.
All right, and so this is why conservation of ecosystems is so very, very important. One of the reasons most that we don't have industrialized fleets in any of the Caribbean territories is because the fish biomass is just not there. You did mention, Mose, that there are these kind of opportunistic vessels that will pass through. That is not a lie. They will pass through and they will pick up tunas, especially during the cooler months. And remember, Mose, like right now we are going into the cold front season. And in the cold front season, basically what happens is a kind of churning of the sea. It gets stormy. And you get the mixing of the seas, and your tuna population and your kingfish, Mose, you're the core from our fishing family. you know that only during the cooler months that you will have those in any kind of abundance. So I just wanted to make that point that yes, the Belize seas do have fish biomass. I will make 2 points. The productivity is either in the water column that we call the pelagic stocks or on the bottom that we call the benthic stocks. The Belize shelf is very, very narrow, and the atolls are a steep drop off. What I expect, there has been some exploratory fishing in Belize before, Mose, and what I expect to see, or for us to find out, is that there are fish stocks there, but they will not support full-time any industrialized fleet. I am an advocate for saying whatever we find should be reserved for Belizeans because it will be medium-scale vessels. It will be medium-scale and semi-industrialized. You'll have your not long lines, you'll have your vertical reels, and you'll have your traditional hand lines.
Okay.
But I do not expect that the Belizean seas will support any industrialized fishing.
Well, I think the last thing that we want is any kind of industrialized fishing anywhere taking place in Belize, and not just industrialized, but any deeply cooperation-based that kind of model of fishing. I think one of the things that we are blessed with is that our model is more what they describe as the artisanal version of fishing, small scale fishers, and that is something that is valuable to us, that serves us, that is inclusive, and we have to protect that because that's one of our few remaining national possessions, if I may use that description. I want to thank you for the call, George. I got to go to break, and then I obviously, as prophesied by Marisol, she ain't going to leave here at 8:30. I go to break and come back.
Very good.
Yeah. Welcome back, Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. We have Marisol Amaya as our guest, and before we take in other calls, I really need to get, because our time is limited, and I want Marisol to really just kind of give a summary of the importance, and I wanted, you have spoken to government officials, you did speak with Minister Andre Perez.
Well, I tried.
You tried to.
I asked him for an interview, but this was outside of a house meeting. I had already notified them that I wanted to speak with them. I didn't tell them the topic, but the day of the house meeting, I sent him a message, can we do an interview outside during our break? And his first thing was, well, what's the topic? So when I share deep sea, and he's like, well, what about deep sea? So I got straight to it. This rumor that the government is planning to or has approved Taiwan to fish in our EEZ. And his thing was, well, share who are the people who are coming with this so that we address it from there. And I'm like, I'm putting this allegation to you as an official to get what's the actual position. And from there was no response. A FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request was sent, a separate one in relation to just this, because a joint one was sent in relation to stock assessment, in relation to gill nets and so many other things, permanent residents who have been registered. That is going to be instrumental in the gill net piece, so look out for that one. That one is supposed to be a video piece that's supposed to drop by Thursday, because we have a deadline of October.
Where will it be?
That one is going to be on XTV. We're going to air it on Crumb Television as well, but in parts on Crumb Radio as well.
On XTV.
Sorry, yes, XTV.
Yeah.
XTV from radio
Alright.
in parts
Okay.
before the end of the month. So that was the reaction or the communication with the minister. But then, in furthering the investigation, I came across this piece of, well, a statement that he made, the minister, Perez, speaking at the first what was it? The
Belize Investment Summit.
Investment Summit out in San Pedro, and he said that if it is found that we have sufficient stock, then foreign fishing vessels would be open to come in if there's the interest in that kind of investment. And that is what I put to different people in conservation who had not seen it, and I just happened upon that. But also, I don't know if Alexei, you can put up the last picture that I have sent you.
I'm just trying to, because of time, bear with us, caller.
Yes, if you can put up this statutory instrument number 13 of 1999, because the Fisheries Administrator acting, Rigoberto Quintana, when I asked him, he did allow me an interview, a sideline interview at an event, right? So I credit him for addressing the issue even after the FOIA request had been sent, right? And he said, no, we have not approved. We're not even there yet. We're at the stage of trying to get off the stock assessments off the ground, but not there yet. And he said, if we were to go that route, we need to conduct the consultation plus have guidelines in place. Well, ta-da! This is a statutory instrument that speaks specifically about foreign fishing vessels. What more guidelines than this do you need? It's already there from 1999. This tells you even about putting observers on a vessel, on a foreign fishing vessel, because you understand that that is very important, right? The monitoring and the control aspect. What I think would need to happen is you tweak this, you update it, whatever, but your baseline is already there. So then I found, I was shared an article or a report that was done by a government entity in the UK with which our government has partnered, and this one was called an IUU risk profile for Belize. That's further down, Alexa, the map that you had been showing me. So that map actually has references to Belize's internal waters, territorial sea, and EEZ, but it's not as clear as the one that Jamani produced, right? And in that report, they too walked away. These are foreign experts too from the UK government, and they conducted interviews with officials here. I'm not sure who else, but they also made a visit in April 2022, I believe, and then they conducted satellite reviews of what vessels are passing through our EEZ, and of course they found cargo vessels and so passing through. That's expected, but then again you have all these questions about cargo vessels potentially fishing too, which would fall under the IUU category of fishing: illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. Right, there's the map. If you can see, they have the EEZ pointed out, and outside of that, the line that they have is a 15 nautical mile buffer that they did because it was important for them to determine if there's a vessel, a foreign fishing vessel, that's coming even near our EEZ. They found, I think the period was from 2018 to 2021. They conducted an assessment of that entire period because you can actually go back and see, right? There's actual technology that allows you to do that. It's AIS, something similar to like a transponder that's on these vessels, and according to international law, vessels are required to have that on, but then some of them turn it off. And when they turn it off, well, you can't tell if they are in your waters. So in this case, OCPP found that there had been 4 fishing vessels, among them a Taiwanese vessel that came close within that same 50-mile buffer. There was one which did come into our EEZ, but they determined that because of the patterns of movement and so, that there had been no fishing done. Now, officials here could not tell me which vessel had come into the EEZ, and I had written to OCPP and they told me, go through the government to get that information, right? And we've seen what's happened in terms of us submitting Freedom of Information Act requests. The government officials catch feelings because of that. So they've said, in our case, when we asked for an interview after I had reached out to Minister Perez, I asked the CEO for an interview, and her response was, because you have gone the legal route, meaning you're seeking these Freedom of Information Act requests, then no interview will be provided until that whole thing is sorted out and it takes its course.
It's an interesting excuse.
So yeah, so all of that happened.
Point is, Marcel, because I have called that's trying to get in, just to have people know that, listen, the article is there for your consumption. We encourage you to do so. Especially educators, we encourage you to get a hold of the article. A lot of work has gone in. Resources have been invested to make this article, and again, we need to express our gratitude. I'm sure you have some people to thank, but allow me please to take this call before I go to my last break. Crème, good morning, WUB.
Hello, I'm just calling to let you know, hello?
Yes, hello.
That you all can check a report by the Caribbean Fisheries. Did you check that, Marisol? Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, the 23 report?
No.
Well, you can check that to see the rate. As a matter of fact, it turns out that even Japan is involved in our in the territorial sea evaluation, and Taiwan in the economic zone, in addition to other involvement. If you type in a search, what search do you recall any of the searches you typed in to get information on Taiwan's involvement in Belize?
No, there was IUU, and then obviously the Taiwan Distant Fleet, and that gives me an opportunity to mention or respond to a comment by way of criticism that was made about this report, because in essence they're saying that we are unfairly targeting Taiwan. But just go and read up about Taiwan's Distant Fleet, which is one of the largest, among the 5 largest in the world. China tops that.
And
so it's not unfair.
Extremely questionable.
Yes. it's not unfair criticism, it's the reality. And so I don't know how you write off this whole thing because we are telling you the truth. It's a truth you don't want to hear.
And the next quick observation is this: two things. I never said that that thing was laid out. There was an educational activity in Toledo, and it was at that time that this matter emerged. And so I was trying to place it in time, in a time frame, and I said that, well, later on I would point out that it occurred prior to 23, somewhere between 20, and at the end of August, there's a report in the Venetian press, the Venetian media, again, of the involvement in assessing the fishing stock in the economic zone. And my last observation is this one. It is possible that, remember originally the territorial sea was 3 miles. Prior to the Convention on the International Law of the Sea, you didn't have a 12-mile territorial sea, you had a 3-mile territorial sea.
In the south.
The East took back the territorial sea in the south in Punta Gorda. Through the American areas, we went back to the original 3 miles. So that is number one. So the territorial sea has always been calculated from low tide on the outer edge of the Barrier Reef. But the Convention of London and the Treaty of Paris clearly stipulated that the only key that Belize had access to was St. George's Key. And so I don't know, and also remember that the Honduranians have been claiming all along and their rights to the Sabadell Keys in the south. So it is possible that the British, knowing that the keys were a bone of contention, and at that time not conceiving that Barrier Reef actually created a wall. I don't know what was their maritime ideology. With the maritime ideology, because remember, Great Britain had a lot of contention with France about the offshore islands of the very British Isles, the Channel Islands and all of that. So it is possible that is why it is not included in the geographical space, which it should have been included in it. It should be now corrected and included in Belize's geographical space, which would give us a geographical space of about 22,000 plus. I had calculated the one, but I don't remember it now. Bye-bye.
All right. Marcel?
Remember with the, when we were going to the ICJ, they amended the Maritime Areas Act to ensure that we were claiming the entire thing back.
All right. So, Marcel, again, congratulations on great work. I'm extremely proud of it. And I know you're too modest, but it is an absolute work of excellence. And again, we are looking forward to the other efforts. I'm looking forward to Marco's effort. And again, this is work that is done, but it's of no value if we don't consume. It's not an act of vanity. And again, like as you mentioned, a part of it involves self-enlightenment.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And for me, it's just so much information. Especially,
it took me hours and hours and hours when I started writing to actually be able to start, because that was how complex everything was.
Putting it all.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Marcel, thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing the journey and for sharing such a valuable piece with us.
Thank you.
And next time, calling at WB easier than this time. Just say yes. Just say yes.
No, I will not commit.
When the net one drop, you have to come. I'm looking at that as well. Can you make that commitment now?
Really? You want to put me?
Yes, right now. Say to my listeners and viewers.
You need to move the time for WB.
We go to a last break. All right, welcome back to the WUB Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. Mose, Hyde signing out. We hope you have a great Monday. With health and strength, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 6:30 for the Tuesday morning edition of the WUB Wake Up Belize Morning Vibes. We've got to thank the crew, of course. We salute Larry G at Creme Radio, at XTV, the group Mr. Claire Flourish, our director this morning, Mr. Alexi Balai. Right now, as we always do, stand strong, stand firm. For now, we're gone!
Wake up, Belize. 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 Another day is here. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. We gotta keep moving, na 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 na. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Everybody gotta put their time in. Wake up, Belize. Wake up, Belize. Voice our opinion and place your calling. WB. Be yourself, see yourself. This is a show by people. Belize our hopes so to needless reason. Nobody feel left out. It's the vibe we dealing. Let's find a solution. Yeah. Love, respect, unselfishness and cope.